Praise to the Most High. Shalom, 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 everybody. Shalom. Hope everybody's doing well in the spirit. That they had a very mighty and prosperous week. All right, and staying in the spirit, staying strong in the spirit. As the days wax worse and worse, man. Everybody's doing well, man. Welcome to Faith by Works. Welcome to another episode of Faith by Works, which is titled "Courageousness of Transparency." Courageousness of transparency. All right. I'll praise to the Most High that we have yet another opportunity to thumb through the scriptures, right, and have been given another opportunity to be better for the Most High God in these last days. All right, so let's jump straight into it. This is the book of Colossians, chapter 3, and verse 17. And whatsoever ye do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord Yahweh Shai, giving thanks to God and the Father by him. All right. So everything that we do is by Hashem Yahweh Shai, right? Everything we profess throughout that we strap up our boots and, put our hands to do, let it be done to glorify the Most High God, right? That's why we say, call Halal Yahweh by Hashem wa Malak Yahweh Shai in the Paleo Hebrew, which means what? Giving all honor and glory to the Most High God by way of his Son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. This is the book of Psalm, chapter 19 and verse 14. It says, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my redeemer. All right. This is the book of James, chapter 2 and verse 14. It says, what does it profit, my brethren, though a man say he have faith and have not works? Can faith save him? So simply saying I believe, simply saying that, I have a relationship, I love the Lord. Is that enough? Is that sufficient? Well, verse 18 says, ye a man may say, thou hast faith and I have works. Show me thy faith without thy works, and I will show thee my faith by my works. So you show forth that relationship, that fear, that reverence, that love, okay, that belief in the Most High God by your actions, okay? We have to remember that love is an action word. And let us, at the same time, always remember that we're not justified by our works, okay? We have to supersede, all right, the actions and the way and the walk of the scribes and Pharisees, all right? 1 John chapter 3 and verse 18 says, my little children, let us not love in word, neither in tongue, but in deed and in truth, all right, with our hearts and with our actions, all right. We do what is pleasing unto the Most High God because we have faith and we believe in him and we love him. And with the faith and belief in him is what is the spirit that we have when we do, all right, what we do and showing that we love him. All right. So what is the exhortation, the premise, all right, of the week? All right. We know that the title is courageousness of transparency. Well, what is that? Because what do you mean by that? Well, this lesson is very exhortational and it surrounds, all right, the two spirits in the conversation of what? Allowing yourself, all right, to be vulnerable and to be transparent when confessing your faults. And then on the opposite end, the other party, all right, being a good listener and correcting in meekness, all right, and actually bearing the burden and helping that person that is sharing what it is they're struggling with. All right, so let's get those two precepts and how they align. All right, first we're going to go to James chapter 5 and verse 16. It says, confess your faults one to another and pray one for another, that ye may be healed. The effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. All right, so the power of prayer is real, and we must confess our faults one to another, right? Whether it be a sin, right, how we've transgressed the Most High God Yahweh, or it could be something that you're struggling with. It's something that's bringing your spirit down, and you want to confess that, and you want to share that, and actually put forth a prayer request. You understand? And you do this with transparency, with courage, with a courageous spirit, and you're allowing yourself to be vulnerable. All right, you're sharing personal information. detailed information about what it is you're struggling with, or whatever it is you have done and fallen short in. And that requires, that definitely requires that courage, right? And we understand that as the opposite, on the opposite end, a person has to be a great listener. A person has to help bear the burden of that person confessing with "Thus said the Lord," not with feelings and emotions, not with past, just because you've been through it as well. That's not sufficient enough. You have to remember, right? Not only use that previous experience that you've been through before, but also remember how to handle it. "Thus said the Lord," because a lot of times, just because we've been through it before doesn't necessarily mean we handle it correctly in our past. So we always want to help the way the Lord wants us to help. You understand? We also want to remember to be a good brother and a good sister the way the Lord wants us to be a good brother and sister. You understand? So on the opposite end, let's get that Galatians chapter 6. We're going to read 1-3 and 5-6. It says, "Brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault," what he's confessing about, right? "Ye which are spiritual, restore such a one in the spirit of meekness." So let's stop right there. What is the spirit of meekness referring to in this context? A lot of times we get a microphone and we put ourselves on this big pedestal because we're biblically inclined more so than the person that we're teaching, and then we see the fault that they're overtaken by, and we bash them over the head with a Bible. And we say, "Brother, you need to correct that, or you're gonna die." Now, we do want to teach that to make haste. We do want to teach that, the importance of correcting, right, the fault and turning away from the sin, or being better, right, about what it is that's bringing us down. But we want to make sure that we do it in the spirit of meekness, right? Reading on, it says, "Considering thyself, lest thou also be tempted," because it's a possibility that whatever that's bringing that person down, or whatever that person is struggling with, and however they done fell short, it's a possibility that you can be put in that position. The Lord can humble you, all right, and force you to be in a state of meekness because you thought you was better than this person because you wasn't currently going through that. So we want to make sure that we correct with the proper spirit, all right? Because hey, we're trying in these last days. Is our goal is to be the most Christ-like as possible, and to correct our spirit and to kill that old man so that we can see the kingdom of heaven, right? So we have to make sure that in the process of doing this, that we're doing it with compassion, mercy, and long suffering and understanding, like Christ was doing, right? So reading on, it says, "What? Bear ye one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of the Hamashiach. For if a man think himself to be something when he is nothing, he deceiveth himself." So that's doubling down on that spirit, that opposite spirit of correcting and meekness. Reading on, it says, "What? For every man shall bear his own burden. Let him that is taught in the word communicate unto him that teacheth in all good things." All right. So you want to operate in that spirit of meekness when you're bearing the burden, when you're helping that brother, when you're being a good listener. All right. So that's very, very important to really pay attention to, the spirits behind how to execute these two scriptures and exercise and apply to your life. There's going to be a time where a person is going to approach you, right, in the camp, and he's going to ask for advice, or he's going to share some sensitive information to you, and you have to be willing to listen. You have to be willing to um, um, go through the scriptures to give this person good counsel. Or if you have no clue and it's an area where you're not experienced, to direct them to the proper counselor. You understand? So that's very, very important to really examine the two spirits behind this, because not only does it take courage, all right, to be transparent and vulnerable, to confess, right, it also requires meekness, right, understanding and compassion to be the person that's bearing the burden, right? I think brothers and sisters get the point there, right? From there, we're going to actually examine the spirit behind the person that's being the listener, all right, that's bearing the burden, right? So what kind of spirit is needed to bear your brother or sister's burden? You want to, one, be a listener. We're going to go to Sirach chapter 11 in verse 7 through 8. It says, blame not before thou hast examined the truth. Understand first, and then rebuke. Answer not before thou hast heard the cause. Neither interrupt men in the midst of their talk. Right? So don't be that person that as soon as they hear something and, they hear something, that don't sound right, they real quick, boom, all right, brother, you this, look, you need to stop doing this, woo, woo. Or sister, up, sound like this, sister, look, you need to do this, woo, woo. Don't pop off too early. You want to listen to the conversation and hear the matter out. You want to examine all parties in the story or in the confession, right? You want to examine all spirits first before you speak and rebuke. From there, we can go to what? Sirach chapter 5 and verse 11 through 12. It says, be swift to hear and let thy life be sincere, and with patience give answer. If thou hast understanding, that's very important, answer thy neighbor. If not, lay thy hand upon thy mouth. And that's us being instructed to what? Find a proper counselor for this matter. Okay. That's very, very important. All right. I'm gonna get one more as far as being a listener. We're gonna go to the book of Isaiah, chapter 11, and we're gonna read verses 1 through 5. It says, and there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out. All right, it's talking about Yahushua, right? And a branch shall grow out of his roots, and the spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, and the spirit of wisdom and understanding, the spirit of counsel and might, the spirit of knowledge and of the fear of the Lord, and shall make him of quick understanding in the fear of the Lord. And he shall not judge after the sight of his eyes, neither reprove after the hearing of his ears, but with righteousness shall he judge the poor, and reprove with equity for the meek of the earth. And he shall smite the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips shall he slay the wicked. And righteousness shall be the girdle of his loins, and faithfulness the girdle of his reins. Right? So right here in this context is definitely telling us the importance of righteousness and the faith in the Most High God when judging, with providing counsel and providing wisdom. Right? You want to use it with understanding. You want to do this right in the correct way at all times when you're bearing that burden and when you're actually providing that counsel. You understand? So from there, right, what is another spirit that has to be behind bearing a burden, or being a good friend or providing the counsel, right? Is help how the Lord wants you to help. All right. We're going to go to the book of Job real quick. Job chapter 12 and verse 12 through 13. It says, with the ancient is wisdom, and in the length of days understanding. With him is wisdom and strength. He hath counsel and understanding. So if it's not thus saith the Lord, it's counsel from your own belly. And what we have to always remember as men of understanding, as brothers and sisters in this truth, walking in the way of the Lord, is that every idle word you will be judged by. So if you're found giving bad counsel and counsel from your own belly, if you are one of those sisters or one of those brothers just simply saying what you feel and how they should do this, that, and the third, and it's coming from your belly, it's not thus saith the Lord, you're going to be judged by that. Just like how other teachers in Israel will be judged for misguiding sheep. It's the same thing. All right. You're being put in a position to guide, to counsel. So if you're doing it from your own belly and you're doing it in an incorrect way, you're going to be judged by it because you're going to be responsible. That person's blood and mistakes is going to be on your hand. So you always want to make sure that is the counsel that you're providing is thus saith the Lord, or you're putting that person in a position to receive the counsel of thus saith the Lord. All right. From there, all right. Two more points, right? Two more things that the spirit behind being the person bearing the burden and also, being a good counselor is what? Showing compassion and understanding, because that's what Christ did, right? Let's go to 1 Peter chapter 3 and verse 8. It says, finally, be ye all of one mind, having compassion one of another. Love as brethren, be pitiful, be courteous. Right? So that's really the spirit behind what correcting and meekness, right? It's showing that compassion and being understanding, because you could be tempted. You could be put in this person's shoes. You want to do everything with humbleness and meekness, because the Lord could put you in that position. If you're the one that's thinking, oh, look, I'm better than this person. Um, um, they going off. This person is weak to this demon. I know this demon way too well. Hey, the Lord can intensify that demon, intensify that fault, put it on you, put you in the position of this person that's coming to you to humble you and to bring you down, to abase you and have you understand, hey, look, all right, you're not untouchable. You're not better than your brother or your sister who's coming to you. You understand? From there, esteem the weak. All right, we also have to what? Remember to esteem others more than ourselves, right? Further doubling down on that spirit of meekness, really. This is the book of Philippians chapter 2 and verse 3 through 5. It says, let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem other better than themselves. Look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others. Let this mind be in you, which was also in the Hamashiach Yahushua. Right? So we have to what? Lift each other up. When you're being put in a position to bear your brother or your sister's burden, when you when you're being placed by the Most High God in a position to listen to a confession, to help another person, you have to lift them up, not beat them down. You have to esteem them, right? Bring them up through the spirit, because this is how Yahushua was. And in order to do that, you really have to adapt to a selfless spirit. There's no there's no way you can esteem another. There's no way you can help another. There's no way you can give counsel, righteous counsel and sincere counsel, by being selfish, but rather being selfless. All right. So from there, right, let's now examine, right, the spirit behind the person that is confessing, the person that is, being vulnerable, being transparent, and really crying for help, right? Let's examine what that spirit is supposed to look like, right? There's a few things that spirit must do in order for it to confess, right, with sincereness and correctness with the Most High God. Right. First, you got to trust those the Lord put around you. You have to trust, right? This brother or this sister is coming to you and it's thus said the Lord. Hey, you got to hearken, and you have to trust in the Lord and its counsel. You have to trust in the scriptures. You have to trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not onto your own understanding. Because guess what? All right. We come from a world where I can do bad all by myself, or you know what, I'm gonna just shut up and keep my mouth closed because this person is going through something as well. Um, I'm just, I'm gonna mess with whoever mess with me. I'm gonna share whoever shares with me. Like it's like I only love and I only open up to another reciprocating individual, and that's not what the Lord has said for us to do. If you have genuine and sincere brothers around you and they're bringing you out counsel with thus saith the Lord, you have to hearken, and you have to accept the love from your brother. It's something that we always have to remember, right? So we're going to go to the book of Proverbs chapter 19 and verse 21. It says, there are many devices in a man's heart. Nevertheless, the counsel of the Lord, that shall stand. So we understand, right? Jeremiah 17 and verse 9, the classic we bring it out all the time. The heart is desperately wicked. Who can know it? The heart, the flesh, right? The body, right? That we're being placed in, the world that surrounds us is wicked. And Satan's and his devices, the wiles of the devil, right? The wickedness and darkness of this world, it all plays hand in hand. And this is why we can't trust in our flesh. We have to trust in the Lord. And it's all praises unto the Most High God. We bring it out all the time, Baruch, right? Chapter 4 and verse 4, I believe, that we have what is pleasing unto the Most High God. That even though we're operating in this flesh, walking in this flesh, and we're having all these outside influences on how we're supposed to think, we can now kill that old man and that old way of thinking, because we see that the scriptures is right here in front of us, and we still have the opportunity to open it up and be right exhorted and be edified. From there, we have to understand that we must be brave in vulnerability. It takes bravery to be vulnerable. It takes bravery to be transparent and honest, right? If you are a brother or if you are a sister who struggles with, I don't know, masturbation and pornography, imagine how self-sabotaging and how brave you have to be to go before a group of individuals to share that, on how embarrassing it may be, and you have to really prioritize what the Lord requires of you and what He thinks in order to share that. It takes bravery and courage. You understand? So that's something that's really what we have to think about. This is the book of Sirach, chapter 37, verse 12. It says what? But be continually with the godly man, whom thou knowest to keep the commandments of the Lord, whose mind is according to thy mind, and will sorrow with thee if thou shalt miscarry. So this is why it's important that we watch who we hang around, that we're not around people that's going to always take our side and that's going to always tell us what we want to hear, but rather, hey, sis, look, I'm going to be honest. You was wrong with this. I understand how you feel. I understand how we came up. I understand how you feel, because we were raised a certain way. We came up seeing things a certain way. We were programmed to handle things how you handle them now. But this is what the scriptures say, brother. Hey man, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I'm gonna keep it 100. You was off by doing this. You can't operate like that. I understand that this made you mad. I understand that this, that, and the third. I understand, King, and I'm gonna show compassion there because I'm guilty of that as well. But we gotta do this. This is what the Lord said. That's that's what needs to be taking place. And you want to be continually with a man or a woman like that. All right. From there, you need to prioritize what the Lord wants of you. Just like what I said before, you have to be willing to take your feelings out of it, all right, to make that confession, to be transparent, and to allow that vulnerability. You understand? Right here in Psalm chapter 139 and verse 23 through 24, it says, search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts, and see if there be any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way of everlasting. And in that prayer, that's literally an example of prioritizing what the Lord wants of you and not your own way. That's you literally, right, doing what? Forsaking the way of wickedness, right? We're going to kill that old man with what? This scripture. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 55, and verse 7 through 8. It says, let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts, and let him return unto the Lord, and he will have mercy upon him and to our God, for he will abundantly pardon. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord. Right? So we have to understand that the old way of thinking, the old man, right, the old woman, right, we have to kill that. And in order to kill that, you have to ask the Most High God to search your heart. And when he searches your heart and he reveals something to you, you have to be willing to show that courage, right? Show that bravery to pull your brother and your sister aside and to express and to confess and to ask for help, right? And another thing too to consider, right? If we're trying to change our spirit for the better, we're trying to be more like Christ. One of the real huge things that I see in myself and other brothers and sisters in Israel is that vulnerability. It can go in so many different ways. Like, for an example, as a brother and as a man of the Lord, a lot of times we tend to be so hyper focused on austerity that we be afraid to, right, talk about sentimental things. And certain things make us uncomfortable, like saying I love you or shedding tears. We tend to be too macho, right? And what that is a state of pride, and we got to get rid of that. We were raised, right, by men. Some of us not raised by men, but rather told by our mothers or whoever raised us that, hey, look, stop that crying, dry that up. Now, there's a balance to things. You fall, your child falls, scrape their knee. Con, yeah, tears are tears are definitely permitted, but crying for manipulation, to get your way, or just being a crybaby, it's not permitted, right? That's effeminate. We want to purge that out. But we come from environments or households where you're not allowed to cry. You need to fix your face. You need to hold it in. Or, hey, don't let them see you cry. Because crying is a sign of weakness, so on and so forth. We were brought up in that type of environment, and now it's cultivated, right? How we think and how we move. And now that stood in the way as an obstacle in confessing our faults one to another. So it gets so deep, Then on the female side, independence is taught at an early age because of the traumatic experiences that they went through in relationships, right? And it's unfortunate, right, that a lot of our sisters go through what they go through, but what it's developed into is that independence, that I can do all bad by myself. I can do anything by myself. I can do it all alone, right? When deep down you want that help, deep down you want that sympathy, and you want that compassion, right, from the opposite sex. You understand? And what it really creates is an environment of putting this real big hard shell up when it shouldn't be there. We have to get back to love, compassion, um, healing. You understand? Healing. When we look at what is that, 2 Chronicles 7 and verse 14, we have to bethink ourselves when we have to what? Be in a state of confession, be in a state of humbleness and meekness, and transparency and vulnerability before the Most High God can heal us. Before you can treat a wound, you have to take the bandage off. You have to reveal the wound. You have to expose the wound. All right, before you treat it. That's just how it has to happen. And I think a lot of our traumatic experiences, right, that we've been through, it really shapes and cultivates the way we think, move, and how we operate. And in order for us to be better as a people and to grow as a people, we have to be willing to confess, talk, and actually be what? Transparent before we can even start healing. And we always have to remember, whenever somebody comes to us, on the opposite side, and we're being put in a position to be a listener and to exhort and to lift up, when the Lord gives us that opportunity, we have to do it in meekness, lest we be tempted, lest we be put in a position to be humbled, and to remember that this stuff here is no joke, and that the Lord puts things on people, right, to teach them things. The Lord brings people through things to teach them and to show them something. And if you're being in a position to teach and to help and to pull up, you have to do it with the right spirit. But that's all for today. Lord willing, somebody was edified or will be edified in the coming days. We love you, Israel. Remember to be courageous and transparency. It's okay to be vulnerable, to be transparent, and to confess. The Lord requires that of us. And always remember that when you're being put in a position to exhort, to pull up, to help, and to bear the burden of your brother or sister, do it in the spirit of meekness. With that, we say shalom until next week. Kwame Asherallah.